In 2023, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of cozy games available to you on the Nintendo Switch. But despite trying my absolute best to cover as many games as possible, there are still some cozy games that are absolutely incredible that don't get talked about enough. So today I'm going to go through my top pick of underrated cozy games that just deserve a little bit more love. And as always, if you think I've missed out any games, be sure to comment your favorite underrated cozy game in the comments down below. Starting off today's list, we have Good Pizza, Great Pizza. This game has actually turned out to be one of my current favorites, and I found it so hard to put it down. Now, if you're on TikTok, this game might seem a little bit familiar, as it seems to be absolutely everywhere. In Good Pizza, Great Pizza, you guessed it, you make pizza. The way the game works is it's split into days, and each day you try and serve as many customers as possible. The catch is that the customer won't always tell you exactly what they're looking for, and sometimes their pizza requests might be a little bit vague. This gives you the option to either ask them more questions to figure out what they want, or just kind of roll with it. After you figure out what they want, it's then your job to make their pizza. You start off by rolling out the dough, you then top it with sauce and cheese if they want it, and then whichever topping they asked for. Now, at the beginning of the game, you only have a few toppings to pick from, but as you progress, you'll get more and more to the point where you just seem surrounded by pizza toppings. Once you've done that, you then cook the pizza, cut it up, box it up, and give it to your customer. And if you do a good job, you'll get a big tip. If you do a bad job, you won't get as much money. You can then use the money you get from the pizzas to upgrade your pizzeria. This could be anything from buying decorations or things to actually improve your pizza making, be it new toppings or a better oven and stuff like that. One of my favorite things about the game though is the reoccurring characters that come to speak to you. Be it the homeless guy that you decide to feed for free, or the kid that sometimes comes in a little short on money, but whose mum always tips well if you do decide to serve him the next day. And as the days go by, you get to learn a little bit more about them. The weird thing is though, in theory, this should be a pretty stressful game, but I really don't feel stressed at all when I play it. I think it's mainly because there's no consequences to failing. Like if you make a bad pizza, you just make less of a profit. Your whole pizzeria won't get shut down or anything like that. And one of my favorite parts is definitely the amount of decorations you can choose from and just how aesthetic they are. Now, the great thing about the Nintendo Switch version is there's actually multiple ways to play the game. You can either play it with the Joy-Cons, where the controls are actually surprisingly good, or my favorite way to play this is undocked using the touchscreen. Now, I did try and play this on the PC with a mouse, and I wasn't the biggest fan of it, so I personally feel like touchscreen is the way to go, and if you don't have an iPad or anything like that, then the Nintendo Switch is a great alternative. I can't believe it took me so long to play it, but this is genuinely one of my favorite cozy games. Next, we have Firewatch. This is an incredible first-person mystery set in the Wyoming wilderness. You play as Henry, whose entire job is to sit up high on a mountain and look out for smoke. And seeing how it's been a particularly hot and dry summer, your job is more important than ever. The game's narrative is driven by the handheld radio you carry with you, which means you're only one button press away from getting a hold of Delilah, who is not only your supervisor, but also your only contact to the real world. I think for me, the thing that really made this special, other than the stunning scenery, is the fantastic voice acting and incredible script, making it feel like you're listening to the conversation between two real people. As they don't just talk about work or the things that's happening around them, you get to hear their casual conversations that lets you get to know them far beyond the job they're doing. And it's your decision in the game that decides what kind of relationship these two have, and therefore what actually happens in the game. It's an absolutely incredible game. I can't recommend it enough, and definitely different to a lot of the cozy games that are coming out at the moment. Then we have Night in the Woods. I feel like this is less underrated and more just a fantastic game that's kind of been lost over time. And if you're someone who thoroughly enjoyed Fall of Porcupine, then you'll find that this is where they got their inspiration. In Night in the Woods, you play as May, who, after dropping out of college, returns to our hometown, Possum Springs. This is an ex-mining town that's definitely past its prime. And although her goal was to rekindle her former life and reconnect with the friends she left behind, she soon finds out that things aren't exactly how she left it. The town has most definitely aged, her friends have grown and changed, and nothing really is how she remembered it. And at least to me, this story focused on May's refusal to accept adulthood, despite having no choice but to, is brutally relatable. As let's face it, no one really chooses to be an adult, it's just thrust upon you. The game is driven by the conversations that you have with the characters you meet around the town, with everything you do kind of adding to the overarching story. I think the best part about this entire game though is although there is a kind of ghost story going on in the background, intertwined throughout the entire thing are the struggles of everyday people and everyday life. And although you get up to all kinds of shenanigans throughout the game, it's these painfully human interactions that bring the game and the town to life. Then we have Lost in Play. This is actually one of my favorite point and click games that I've played on the Switch so far, and I've played a fair amount as they're one of my favorite genres. And honestly, it took me by surprise that this was one of my favorites because there's actually no dialogue in it at all. This is a wondrous adventure of two children finding their way back home, fueled by imagination. Not only are the classic click and point mechanics absolutely spot on, the puzzles you encounter along the way are so varied and utterly fantastic. Although admittedly, there were a few that I really struggled on, but thankfully there are walkthroughs. I think my favorite moments were when the game strips away the children's imagination and you get to see where they actually are. Like for example, the spaceship that they're in is actually just an empty cardboard box. And although the game was short, it was an experience I thoroughly enjoyed. Then we have Monster Prom. Now just a warning, this is most definitely a game for adults, but this is a dating sim like nothing you've experienced before. This is set 3 weeks before prom at a high school. And you guessed it, you are also a monster. And the goal is to try and get a date for the prom. But the only issue is this is actually a competitive dating sim that you can play with your friends. Now, one of the things I love is that you get to do personality quizzes to determine your exact stats. And the dialogue is so wacky that you're guaranteed to end up doing the weirdest things to try and seduce your dates. The writing is incredible and it's just a blast from start to finish, and you can either enjoy it with yourself or with up to 3 friends. And I just love the fact that it's geared towards adults and not children. Sometimes it's nice to have a game that's made for like us, you know? Then we have Coffee Talk, which I'm gonna be real, this probably isn't underrated in my channel, but this is underrated in the greater world. In Coffee Talk, you work behind the bar as a barista in an alternative version of Seattle. And it's here where you make drinks and listen to your fantasy customers' stories about their lives. But in Coffee Talk, you do far more than just serve coffee, as the drinks you make them will influence each and every one of the characters' stories. And it's these stories, combined with the fact that you can draw latte art with every single cuppa you make, that allows you to immerse yourself in the cozy vibes of hanging out in a coffee shop. The thing to me that makes this really special though is the fact that the characters interact with not only you, but also each other. And despite the fact that you never leave the barista counter throughout the entire game, you learn so much about the world and each and every character through their conversations. And the fun part about this is that characters have different endings, so you definitely have a reason to play this more than once. And if you do choose to replay the game, there'll be a few surprises in there as well. Now, Coffee Talk 2 is definitely better than Coffee Talk 1, but I definitely recommend playing the first one before the second one, as there's a lot of reoccurring characters and themes, but both of them are spectacular and some of my favorite games to play before bed. Then we have YouTuber's Life 2. This is such a gem of a game that has been completely forgotten about, and I feel like cozy gamers aren't even aware of just how cozy this game can be. In YouTuber's Life 2, you move to New Tube City. to try and make it as a YouTuber. And it's up to you to decide what kind of YouTuber you set out to be it lifestyle, vlogging, interviewing, or even cozy gaming. Each day you wake up, you check the trends, and then you set out to film videos, edit them, and upload them. And you can use the money from each upload to upgrade your equipment or buy the newest and hottest games to hopefully get even more viewers. There's also an incredibly wacky story that runs alongside the entire game, but the thing I love the most are the events that happen that you can attend. Like, you can go to the biggest gaming conventions where they announce new games and new releases. You can also get sneak peeks at new games before they've released to get even more viewers. And to me, this has a similar like gameplay loop style of gameplay as like farming sims, but there is no farming. So you get that kind of routine without having to play yet another farming sim. And I think that's one of the reasons why I've been gravitating back to this. Then we have Bugsnax. In this, you venture to Snacktooth Island, which is home to the legendary half-bug, half-snack creatures named Bugsnax. Now, you were invited to the island by an intrepid explorer named Elizabeth, but upon your arrival, you can't find her at all. And after some investigating, you find that the camp is an absolute mess, and their followers are scattered across the island, alone and hungry. So it's up to you to figure out what happened, where Elizabeth is, what Bugsnax even are, and why they taste so good. Because in Bugsnax, you are what you eat really truly means something. There's over 100 different species of Bugsnax to encounter and catch, along with a diverse island to go and explore. You can also decorate your home, dress up your favorite Bugsnax, and this is truly a game that's wacky in the best possible way. And then we have Rakuen. Now, this is definitely a cozy game, but it's also a pretty heartbreaking one. This is an adventure game where you play as a young boy who's in hospital. And in order to pass the time, he listens to stories his mum tells him. His favorite story is one that takes place in a magical forest, where the leader can grant one wish to those who are worthy. And after his mother insists that the story is real, the boy asks his mother to take him there, and they step from the hospital walls straight into the world of the book. The only issue is, once they get there, they find the forest guardian is actually asleep, so he won't be able to grant the boy his one wish. So he sets out to try and wake the forest guardian, and in order to do that, he must help the people of the village. And thanks to the blurring of the imagination and the real world, these people in the village are also the other children in the hospital. And despite the overarching whimsical tones of the story, it will definitely be guaranteed to hit you right in the feels. The game sees you explore, solve puzzles, and take in the sights as you travel through this cozy, no combat world. And on the Nintendo Switch, this is actually the deluxe edition, so this will include the original game, but also its sequel as well. That's it for our current underrated cozy games list. And if you think I missed out any games, you might find them in these two videos.